It's a very warm welcome, 900 hours Central Africa time on this Tuesday, the 24th of October, Jumbo Africa. I'm Elvis Preslin. And you're watching the Newsroom. We'll be here until 12 o'clock with you. The focus today is on a big one. Family members of the life Esidimeni victim says that they are nowhere closer to finding answers to the deaths of their loved ones. Scandal.
Yeah, what a sad case, absolutely. And we'll find out from you. What do you make of the testimonies thus far at the life Esidimeni arbitration?
Let's take a quick look at what you are telling us. This one on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on the Facebook page. This one from Kenneth says, Kendall.
He says, people were very reckless and negligent with people's lives. How sad.
Well, that's some of the comments coming in. We'll take a look at some more of those. But we're also focusing on the North Gauteng High Court, who's expected to hear President Jacob Zuma's review application of the state capture report's proposed remedial action. And the question that we pose to you on the poll
is, should the president appoint a commission of inquiry to investigate himself?
Well, there you go. There's the numbers. 48 votes in thus far. 54% of you are saying no. 46% are saying yes. SA released its Victims of Crime survey, which shows that crime experienced by the households and individuals has been decreasing over the last 4 years. The survey also shows that despite the decrease, South Africans are not feeling any safer. Let's now go live to Parliament, where the Minister is tabling his report.
Thank you for the opportunity to present to you the annual crime statistics for 2016-17 period. I will give opening remarks, and then I will invite the Department of Police and, where necessary, other officials, with your permission, Chair, to present the actual numbers behind the headlines, numbers I will touch on. They will be assisting myself to provide you with all the information you may require today. The Deputy Minister is supposed to be here, but is not here because of bereavement. His nephew passed away because of being stabbed in the Guguletu township. Chairperson, the National Development Plan Outcome 3 states, I quote, in 2030, all people living in South Africa feel safe, have no fear of crime, are properly served by the police and courts, and no corruption no longer eats away their livelihood. The annual crime statistics enable government, this Parliament, civil society and our people to monitor key targets, in particular the reduction of reported serious crimes as set out in the medium-term strategic framework. The statistics could also be utilized as early warning to strengthen crime prevention operations and strategies of various departments of government beyond just South African Police Service. I wish to mention something important from the onset. I'm aware that crime involves high emotions, rightly so. We must not see these statistics just as pure numbers. Behind the numbers are real feelings, real lives, real hurt, real harm, real losses, deaths, feelings of unsafety. These statistics represent the memory of that gruesome rape or murder, the fearful home invasion and loss of property. These numbers have consistently said no community can claim they live in safety and feel safe in South Africa. Our people are losing their children from heinous crimes, drug gangs, infighting for turf wars. Our people have no-go areas due to criminality and violence that visits such areas. In Vuani, adults commit crimes of arson and harassment against little children intending to get an education. I acknowledge that most our people live under siege from crime. We must ask whether we have accepted to live side by side with violent criminals who literally emote terror across our nation, be it Amavondo, in the rural areas of Lisigisig, where this past Saturday we opened a new police station, of the Art police station, or the hard-living gangs across the Cape Flats. We must ask, have we accepted to live side by side with violent criminals in our big cities, where car hijackings and home invasions are a common phenomenon? We have no time to waste time. Crime is delivering terror and grave harm to our people and the economy. I'm aware it is important to understand there will never be a victory lap until such time that our people feel safe and are indeed safe. Safe from crime, safe from fear of crime, in particular, violent crime. All this makes crime statistics a very important tool in the fight against crime. We simply cannot fight against an enemy we do not understand. We get to understand the patterns, the occurrences and types of crimes through the statistics so that we may plan accordingly. The integrity of the crime statistics is very important, and the public must trust that there are no numbers game or clever accounting taking place. SAPS has entered into a formal and structured arrangement with Statistics South Africa through a memorandum of understanding in order to integrate SAPS national crime statistics with the official statistics. This arrangement entailed the following: A, the use of common statistical standards; B, adherence to quality crime criteria determined by the Statistician General; C, a commitment to build institutional statistical capacity; D, adherence to the UN principles. The South African Police Service National Crime Statistics measure 21 serious crimes. 17 of these crimes are reported by community, and the other 4 are detected as a result of police-initiated operations. Put differently, the 17 crime categories are supposed to decrease, whilst the other 4, which are illegal possession of firearms and ammunition, driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs, possession of and dealing in drugs, and sexual offenses detected by the police, are supposed to increase as a result of police action or detection. The 17 community-reported serious crimes have continually decreased during the last half of the 10-year period from 2007-2008 to 2016-17 under consideration in this crime of statistics for the 2016-17 financial year. However, the contact crime figures, which generally reflected a fairly consistent decrease during the first of the 10-year period under discussion, have increased over the preceding 3 financial years. In the financial year under review, a reversal is observed and a decrease was recorded. Despite the decrease in this financial year, some of the individual categories, such as murder and robbery with aggravating circumstances, have over the past 4 financial years tended to reflect an upward trend. Among the contact crimes, robberies are still of particular concern. Robbery is not only considered a more policeable crime than the other contact crimes, but also increasingly considered as an important contributor to the other contact crimes. Allow me to make an example. A simple robbery becomes serious when a weapon is used in the process, or when assault occurs, or a murder or rape occurs during the said robbery. So robbery must be treated as serious focus area. Some of the subcategories of robbery with aggravating circumstances, namely the trio crimes, carjacking, house robbery, and business robbery, including hijackings, which are to a greater extent organized in nature. Analysis conducted by the national and provincial offices revealed that most of, particularly the trio crimes, are organized crimes in nature and need a different approach to crime combating. I have emphasized the need for intelligence-led crime prevention and fighting plans. Division of Crime Intelligence should play a vital and prominent role in our approach. Research has further shown that the majority of contact crimes are social in nature and occur among people who know one another. It is for this reason extremely difficult, if not possible in some cases, for the SAPS alone to reduce or prevent the levels of such crimes. This calls for structured partnership with other stakeholders such as the Department of Social Development, non-governmental organizations, community policing, community safety, and everyone in our society, each citizen. Findings during preceding financial years and the current financial year's analysis reveal that the role of alcohol, drugs, and firearms in the commission of crime is predominant and requires multi-sectoral special attention. Research findings not only indicate that a notable number of victims and perpetrators were under the influence of alcohol or drugs during the commission of particularly the social contact crimes, but also indicate the role of dependency on such substances as motivation to commit other crime and property-related crime in particular. I wish to emphasize the need to involve the society at large in campaigns to create awareness about the dangers of substance abuse and alcohol abuse. In the financial year under review 2016-17, approximately 2.1 million serious crime counts were recorded, of which 1738980 were community-reported serious crimes. The latter decreased by 1.8% compared to the 2015-16 financial year. This decrease was driven mainly by a reduction in all the broad crime categories, namely contact-related crime, 3.3%, contact crime, 2.4%, other serious crime, 2.0%, and property-related crime, 0.5%. The contact crime experienced a reversal from 1.0% increase recorded during the preceding financial year. Contact crime decreased by 2.4% in 2016-17. The decrease followed upon increases during the preceding two financial years. The decrease during 2016-17 resulted in the figure for the 17 community-reported crimes decreasing to a level lower than 3 years previously when the figure started to increase. Contact-related crime decreased by 3.3%, following upon a decrease. Property-related crime experienced a decrease of 0.5% in 2016-17. This follows upon decreases of 1.8% and 0.8% respectively during the two preceding financial years. Other serious crime decreased by 2.0% in 2016-17, following upon decreases of 4.1% in 2015-16 and 2.2% during 2014-15%. The crimes that are considered as indicators of the effectiveness of police activities, these are crimes detected as a result of police action, experienced a reversal from a decrease of 0.3% in the preceding financial year to an increase of 9.6%. This increase is too small and are indicative of the lazy efforts by our police to detect such crime in order to make South Africa a safer place to live in. Police in this instance are letting our people down, and I'm here to stop it. Gauteng, Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, and Western Cape must have increased police action. When there is an increase in this set of numbers, police action policing, it indicates more police work having taken place. We continue to do less. Yeah, we need to stop, initiate, and innovate. We have cash in transit crimes going up. On the other hand, the financial institutions are not investing properly in the high assets in transit. The armored vehicles we see on our roads do not compare with serious armed vehicles we see in Europe in particular. SABC and banks must invest more in proper equipment and inform SAPS of high-value cargo well in time for planning. Internal hiring in these companies must accompany deeper security vetting and continual lie detector tests and other methods. Banks must return the die that assisted in the slowing down the cash in transit crimes. Rendering the money useless is important. I'm told that banks stop using the orange die because of costs. This is not acceptable. Efforts to deal with the high levels of crime in the country continued to find further expression in several practical initiatives, such as Operation Festive Season, Operation Paseka, Operation Fiela, and Operation Coastal Dragon. Successes achieved in this way should not only serve to encourage members of the service in the performance of their duties, but also motivate members of the public to become positively involved in efforts to eradicate crime. I do wish to emphasize the words, the public must be positively involved in efforts to eradicate crime. Honorable members, crime should be addressed by all of us as an issue of national interest and priority. We must not score political points over these issues and thus lose focus while criminals laugh at us as elected leaders of society. Where we are failing, we expect to be held accountable. But we must understand that our engagement is defined as national interest, because to bring down crime in our country is in our national interest, irrespective of our political affiliation. And we don't need favors where we are failing in relation to our duties. Crime knows no race, no creed, no religion, and certainly no social strata. The Deputy Minister Mkong is not here because he has lost his nephew, Andile, from a knife attack in Khayelitsha. We have ministers in this parliament and ordinary citizens who have buried their own children due to violent crime. We interact and meet many victims and their families. South Africa cannot continue this way. We must ask whether we have accepted to live side by side with violent criminals. Is criminality a South African citizen itself? Our answer must be an emphatic and a radical no. We must deal with crime in a radical and energetic way. Our language must be clear and understood. Let me remind you of what our former President Nelson Mandela taught us. He said, I quote, "If you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart." Close quote. When I send a message to these violent criminals that bazawuchama, I seriously mean it. And I'm communicating in the language that these violent men who rape and murder will understand. This may be isiZulu, and let me translate it into English. I quote, "Violent criminals will receive a proportional response to what they dish out," close quote. When women marched to the union buildings in 1956 said, "Wathinta abafazi, wathinta imbokodo, you will be crushed," they were communicating in a language that the violent criminal apartheid government will understand. Today, I'm saying to criminal gangs, "Nilibambe lingashoni. We're coming for you. Enough is enough." Honorable members, this is not just talk. We are strengthening our capacity. We are appointing strategic thinkers in police management and stabilizing our crime intelligence division to enable intelligence-led crime prevention and policing. It is against that background that we intend to close gaps in terms of leadership of the police. We want, before end of the year, to have appointed a new permanent national commissioner of police, which the president will announce and appoint. We want to fill the vacancy of the acting position of DPCI and all other vacancies that are there, including crime intelligence, permissible to us. That should have happened long time ago if we're not faced with litigation challenges. The environment we operate in requires leadership, and South African Police Service need leadership and stabilized leadership in order for us to succeed. We have relaunched specialized units to focus on drugs, rape, violent threats, and violent criminals. We are enhancing our technological capacity to match the evolved digital technology arena. Importantly, I have directed police to focus on crime modus operandi to cap the multiplier effect of crime. We are working with our partner departments to make sure that correctional service does not let criminals who are in our pending system out. We are working with NPA to make sure our dockets are speedily court ready. We are working with NPA to make sure we together vigorously oppose bail applications on rape and other high category crimes. We will focus on prisons to make sure this repeat offender phenomenon ends. Social development and human settlement are working with us to deliver safety to the vulnerable. Our approach is multi-pronged and extends to making sure there is adequate victim support and reduction of barriers to reporting crime. Our 6-point plan is being auctioned in this regard. As Minister, I've set out to deliver a police service which is professional, courteous, understand constitutional democracy policing, and important, I've directed that our approach should be that of de-escalation policing. Upon getting these statistics, the President has demanded that we stop lamenting about the contributing factors to crime, and he has instructed that we return back to him immediately with a plan and proposals on how we intend dealing with the issue of alcohol abuse, drug abuse, and firearms. Minister of Health informed me that we are the 10th most drunkard nation in the world, with a population of 56 million and growing. This is a serious worry, and indeed, we locate alcohol in the overwhelming number of crimes and violent crimes. Indeed, crimes like carjackings today end up being cross-border crimes, where our people's cars are being freely driven in Mozambique to Lesotho and beyond. Yes, we have a 1.8% drop in crime. I do not feel it, and our people do not feel it, and they are not incorrect. We have a drop in sexual violence, but we have no more and more pictures, but we have more and more pictures of our women going missing. People must feel the drop in crime where they live. We have no time to waste time. We are still on the road towards safe communities. SAPS have an acute lack of ensuring that we've got leadership from station level upward. Our station level, at the level of police stations, must ensure that we are felt in the different communities where we live. As we go around our country in the townships where we live, we visit police stations across the length and breadth. The message is one: lack of service, and lack of caring. And our people are crying for caring from our police force. Our police force is working under tremendous pressure. They need to be directed. They need leadership. We know that we don't have the numbers on the ground that are required. Our numbers are decreasing. The population is growing. But we need smart policing. We need leadership that is able to direct policing in the most smart and effective way with the numbers that we have at our disposal. We need to keep everybody in check and ensure maximum discipline and proper deployment. If you are not in check in any work in station or work environment, you do as you wish, the morale goes down. And that is what we need to change. And we're going to change it going forward, because we've got men and women in the police force who are ready to accomplish that mission. Yes, we must admit before this committee, as we present the statistics, the question of chop and change in the leadership of police, from Pegikele to Ria Pierre to appointees on temporary basis, has affected the focus and direction of the police. We must not tell a lie. We must not claim easy victories. We must put it as it is, so that we are able to self-correct in what we do. Our intentions of ensuring that there is stability, there is leadership, is to hold people accountable, is to give direction to our police force on the ground who are crying for leadership. We need to look at our top-heavy leadership structure at head office and to see who's who and who's doing what in terms of our human resource, and people must be deployed accordingly. It is my intention, as I've directed already, nobody in the police force at the top management level and all levels must find themselves running around aimlessly without a job description. And that starts with the top management. But Tupeli was just an invent. It is not something management truly bothers with. Police stations and 10,111 are the places at which service delivery begins. Police must treat our people courteously and with sensitivity. We agree with our people that much needs to be done to improve our front office services. The hashtag My Police Station campaign came about as a result of people being treated badly in police stations. Police treat our people as nuisance. Let me be clear, our people do pay for your living, and they are your clients and customer as policemen. Crime is generally down, but when you zoom into the numbers, we have a big problem where violent crime is going up, and there is no time to hide this. Our police are working under tremendous situations, but are not led properly at times. Management must have strategic capacity, or else we have accepted living with criminals as a part of a lifestyle. Chairperson, I now wish to invite Lieutenant General Mutiba and his team to present the 2016-17 National Crime Statistics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. General Mutiba.
Thanks, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Minister, Honourable Members. Before, Honourable Chairperson, we start with the presentation of the crime statistics, I really want to make use of this opportunity to thank all the stakeholders that are assisting the police in fighting crime. We cannot do this work on our own. I will not mention all the stakeholders, the community out there that are day in, day out working with the police, giving us information, the police community forums at station, cluster, as well as provincial level. These are our lifelong past partners. Honourable Chairperson, we are very much concerned as the police about the violent nature of crime. South Africans are full of anger. A person is being killed at the wink of an eye for a mere difference. And we really want that there's a debate around this issue, because when there's such big violence, large-scale violence in the country, it is really serious cause for concern. And I know that the minister is instructed that there be a crime summit to debate these issues, because we can't be dealing with so many matters in a country. We are throwing everything at the criminals, Honourable Chairperson. The fight against crime is going on every second, every minute. And I also want to thank our provincial commissioners, our head office management, deputy national commissioners, our cluster commanders, station commanders, each and every member. Honourable Chairperson, some of the committee members, including yourself, were there at the police commemoration day, where we were remembering those members that were killed in the line of duty. And this is a good demonstration that we are throwing everything at the criminals. And in the process, some of our members end up being killed by the criminals. And we want to thank all the members for all their efforts. The minister have touched on this, but the decrease in police numbers is serious cause for concern, because we are building new police stations, and these police stations can be adequately capacitated. And I know that the minister is working on that, but we want to also request the committee led by yourself, Honourable Chairperson, to assist us, because this is not the time to reduce the numbers of the police. Without wasting any time, Honourable Chairperson, I'm handing back to you to request that Major General Sikukuni present the crime stats. I thank you.
Thank you to the Acting National Commissioner, General Sikukuni. You're welcome.
Thank you, Chairperson and honorable members. I'll be taking you through the crime situation in South Africa, covering the period 1st of April 2016 to the 31st of March 2017. The presentation will cover the broad categories of crime, methodology, quality improvement initiative, and then we will look at the serious crime classification, the 17 community reported serious crimes, 4 crimes dependent on police action, and core business diversion that is affecting the South African Police Service. In the introduction, we will start with the data collection. We say that the data collection are derived from an administrative data collection process, and that all crimes are recorded as and when they are brought to the attention of the police or detected by the police, irrespective of when the crimes were committed. The document to the attention of the police and subsequently electronically transcribed to the case administration system or CAS. Case numbers are then allocated chronologically to the month, year on which the crime was reported. Each reported crime incident is allocated a crime code, which are then aggregated into what is called the Daily Summary of Serious Crime, or the DSCC codes. These are the DCC codes that are used for classification and statistical reporting purposes. The focus of the report is the raw numbers or counts per serious crime category. They include the 17 community-reported crimes and the 4 crimes dependent on police action for detection, which is a proxy for proactive policing. All attempts of crime are included in the relevant categories. This is the only crime which does not include attempts is murder, because the attempted murders are reported separate. And also rapes, the attempts are reported separately. But for all the other crimes, we include the attempts. Then cases closed off as unfounded in accordance with Standing Order General 325, closing of dockets, are excluded from the crime statistics for reporting purposes. A case is closed off as unfounded when, upon the availability of additional investigation, reveals that no crime has been committed or there were no elements of crime in that particular instance. These cases do not form part of the crime statistics, but they are removed and kept separately for auditing purposes. The annual report also provides percentage change for every crime category. We also looked at the issues of ratios in order to enhance equitable comparison of reported crimes across provinces in the current financial year. The computation of ratios will only cover contact crimes, that is, where the target is a person. We have used the mid-year population estimates to be able to derive these crime ratios. Hence, we are only applying them only to contact crimes, because if one were to apply them all across all the crime categories, crimes that are not necessarily, where the target is not necessarily a person, like for instance, a theft of motor vehicle, the appropriate denominator in that instance to calculate such a particular type of crime would be the total number of vehicles within a particular province that are available to be stolen. The source document for recording crime is a docket, and the counting unit is a charge. One docket may contain one or multiple charges, that is, there can be more than one charge in one docket. In case where multiple offenses are committed within the same scenario, each offense will be recorded in addition to the primary offense. These additional counts also form part of the crime statistics. Then, regardless of the manner in which cases are closed off, that is, withdrawn by the complainant, withdrawn by court, or closed off as undetected, these crimes will still form part of the recorded crime statistics. In this crime report, the statistics represent the number of crime charges or counts and not necessarily the number of registered case dockets. To enhance the quality of crime statistics, we have undertaken the quality assurance process with the South African Statistical Quality Assessment Framework of Stats SA. The latter framework has 6 components of engagement, which is problem identification, diagnostic assessment, development of problem solution, implementation of solution, the SASCAF self-assessment, and the SASCAF independent assessment. At this stage, the South African Police Service have completed stage 5 of the 6-phase engagement, which is the SASCAF self-assessment. The current crime statistics have complied fully with the 4 components of the framework, and we have currently reached the stage of self-assessment. In the previous 2 releases, the clearance committee, which was convened by the Statistician General, assessed the publication for quality. The findings of these assessments were presented to the Registrar for correction and implementation, and hence we have developed policies and standards covering the whole value chain of statistical production of the crime statistics. The crime registrar has also incorporated these changes in line with the clearance committee recommendation. The SASCAF self-assessment process was undertaken during the current financial year, and this self-assessment is currently being discussed with members of the South African National Statistics Service, and feedback will be provided in due course. This will be used as a basis for the Statistician General to convene the independent data quality assessment team with a view of assessing and certifying crime statistics as official statistics. Furthermore, to ensure accurate reporting, the reports will be reviewed to take into consideration the changing of crime status during the course of the year. This particularly applies when we publish quarterly crime statistics, but then at the end of the year, we have to take into consideration all the changes that have happened to the crimes, that is changing of status, cases being closed off as unfounded, etc., so that at the end of the financial year, we have a fully audited crime statistics. We are further looking into providing the data dissemination policy, which will be able to inform stakeholders in advance or with the release calendar, and also clarify the terms and conditions that might be applicable to pre-release access. The draft document is still being consulted through other stakeholders within the criminal justice system. The 17 community reported crimes that we are working on are the broad categories of contact crimes, contact-related, property-related crimes, and other serious crimes. Contact crimes are those whereby the intended victim is a person, and the individual crimes within that category are murder, sexual offenses, attempted murder, assault GBH, common assault, common robbery, and robbery with aggravating circumstances. Rape is further broken down into sexual offenses is further broken down into rape, contact sexual offenses, attempted sexual offenses, and sexual assault. The category of robbery with aggravating circumstances includes the trio crimes, which are carjacking, robbery residential, robbery non-residential. Furthermore, they also include robbery of cash in transit, bank robbery, and truck hijacking. Contact-related crimes are arson and malicious damage to property, and property-related crimes are burglary at residential premises and burglary at non-residential premises, theft of motor vehicle and motorcycle, and theft out of or from motor vehicle, and also stag theft. The other serious crimes are made up of other theft, commercial crimes, and shoplifting. The 4 crimes which are regarded as a proxy for proactive policing, which are the crime detected as a result of police action, are illegal possession of firearm and ammunition, drug-related crimes, driving under the influence of alcohol and drugs, and sexual offenses detected as a result of police action. I will now go into the breakdown of these crimes that we have given the broad overview. In the current financial year, the South African Police Service have reported 2 million. They have reported 2,129,001 counts of serious crimes. Of these 2,129,001 counts, 81.7%, or 1,738,900, were the community reported serious crime. The biggest contributor to the 17 community reported crimes was contact crimes, which contributed 35%, or 608,321 counts. This was followed by property-related crimes, which contributed 31.1%, or 540,653 counts. Other serious crimes contributed 27%, or 469,276 counts. Contact-related crimes contributed 6.9%, or 120,730 counts. Cumulatively, contact crimes and contact-related crimes contributed 42%, or 729,051 counts. The 4 crimes detected as a result of police action contributed 18.3%, or 390,021 counts for the period under review. When we look at the broad categories of crime which the Minister has touched on, contact crimes maybe the slide needs to be explained first. The blue bar represents the percentage change from 2013-2014 to 2014-15. The gray bar represents the percentage change between 2014-15 and 2015-16. And the gold bar represents the percentage change in the crimes between the year 2015-16 and 2016-17. That is the current financial year. Looking at the broad categories, contact crimes have decreased by 2.4%, or 14,902 counts in the 2016-17 financial year. This decrease follows upon increases of 0.9%, or 5,399 charges in the 2014-15 financial year, and 1.0%, or 6,250 charges in the 2015-16 financial year. Contact crimes in the current financial year decreased by 3.3%, or 4,074 charges in 2016-17. From an increase of 1.9%, or 2,348 charges in 2014-15 financial year, contact crimes have realized 2 consecutive years of decreases, that is 0.8%, or 895 charges, and 3.3%, or 4,076 charges in the current financial year, or 2015-16 and 2016-17 financial year. Property crimes decreased by 0.5%, or 2,871 counts in the 2016-17 financial year. This is actually the 4th consecutive year that this broad category has decreased. In the 2013-14 financial year, this broad category decreased by 0.02%, or 106 charges, followed by 0.8%, or 4,741 charges in the 2014-15 financial year. Other serious crimes decreased by 2.0%, or 9,799 counts in 2016-17, following upon a further decrease of 4.1%, or 20,623 counts, and 2.2%, or 11,050 counts. When we look at the 10-year trend of the 17 community reported crimes, we see that a total of 1,738,980 counts of the 17 community reported crimes were recorded during the 2016-17 financial year. This represents a decrease of 1.8%, or 31,646 counts compared to the 2015-16. Despite the slight increases that we have observed during the 2008-2009 and 2012-2013, the 17 community reported crimes decreased by 6.6%, or 122,639 counts over the past 10 financial year. Chair, at this stage, I would like to emphasize the fact that in some instances, it is always advisable that when you draw your graphs, the axis should cut at the 0. But unfortunately, in this instance, when you do that and your axis cut at 0, the lines flattens out and it inhibits you from seeing the trend that has been observed over the past 10 years. Hence, we have decided to cut down the graph as it has been presented. Now, when we look at the provincial breakdown in terms of the 17 community reported crimes, what we observe here is that 6 of the 9 provinces recorded decreases in the 17 community reported crimes. These are ranged in an increasing order of percentage change, where the Free State with 5.2%, or 5,380 charges less than the previous financial year, followed by Limpopo with 3.9%, or 4,284 charges less. Western Cape was at number 3 at 3.5%, or 13,258 charges less. And then Gauteng with 0.8%, or 4,293 charges less compared to the previous financial year. The 3 provinces that recorded increases are Mpumalanga with 1.4% or 1,433 charges more. Eastern Cape with 1.1% or 1,815 charges more. And the Northwest with 0.9% or 897 charges more. Nationally, the 17 community reported crimes decreased by 1.8% or 31,646 charges. In this slide, we tried to give an overview in terms of which are the provinces that have experienced increases or decreases when we look at the broad crime categories. When we look at the broad category of contact crimes, this has increased in 2 of the 9 provinces, that is Mpumalanga and the Northwest. The way the slide has been arranged is that in the columns, in the black font, we have reported the total that have been recorded for that particular crime type for the whole financial year. And then underneath it, we are showing the percentage change for that particular province when compared to the previous financial year. Then in the contact-related crimes, Eastern Cape and Western Cape were the only 2 provinces which recorded increases in the broad categories of contact-related crimes. Property-related crimes increased in the Eastern Cape, Gauteng, Mpumalanga, Northern Cape, and the Northwest Province. Other serious crimes increased in the Eastern Cape, Limpopo, Mpumalanga Province. Then the 17 community reported crimes decreased in 6 of the 9 provinces. Now, when we go down into the crime types that makes up the contact crimes. Although in the previous slide we have observed that the contact crimes have decreased by 2.4%, when we look at the individual crimes making up this broad category, we realize that we still have problems, especially around the issues of murder, attempted murder, and robbery with aggravating circumstances. In the current financial year, murder increased by 1.8% compared to 2015-16. The increases occurred over the past 3 financial years, and during the preceding 2 financial years, increases of 4.6 and 4.9 respectively were recorded. Sexual offenses decreased by 4.3% in 2016-17, following upon decreases of 3.2 and 5.4% recorded during the 2 previous financial years. Attempted murder increased by 0.4% in 2016-17. This increase follows upon other increases of 3.4% and 3.2% observed during the 2 preceding financial years. Assault GBH decreased by 6.7% in the 2016-17 financial year, following upon increases of 0.2 and 0.1 in the 2015-2016 financial year. Common assault decreased by 5.2% in 2016-17, following upon an increase of 2.2% and a decrease of 2.8% during the 14-15 financial year. Common robbery decreased by 1.3% in 2016-17. During the 2015-16, it decreased by 1.5%. However, this was after an increase of 2.7% that was reported in the 2014-15 financial year. Robbery with aggravating circumstances increased by 6.4% in the 2016-17 financial year. During the preceding 2 financial years, increases of 2.7% and 8.5% respectively were recorded in the 2 previous financial years. Now, when we look at the 10-year trend of the contact crimes, we observe that a total of 608,321 counts of contact crimes were reported during the 2016-17 financial year. representing a decrease of 2.4% or 14,902 counts compared to the 2015-16 financial year. Contact crimes fluctuated between increases and decreases over the past 10 years, but decreased by 11.4% or 77,973 counts between 2007, 2008, and 2016-17 financial year. The breakdown in terms of the contact crimes, these have only increased in two provinces, that is in Mpumalanga by 2.0% or 604 charges, and the Northwest by 0.7% or 259 charges more. In all the other provinces, the contact crimes have decreased. Then this also shows the breakdown in terms of the provinces that have recorded decreases or increases in the broad categories of contact crimes. What is worth noting here is that murder has increased in 4 of the 9 provinces. Attempted murder has increased in 3 of the 9 provinces. Sexual offenses have increased in 2 of these provinces. Assault GBH has reduced in all the 9 provinces. Common assault, only 2 provinces experienced increases, and robbery aggravating, unfortunately, has increased across all the 9 provinces. Common robbery has increased in 5 of the 9 provinces. Now, in this slide, Chair, what we have done is we've shown the actual number of murders reported to the police over a 10-year period, together with the murder ratio per 100,000 of the population over the same period.
General, just a moment. I just want to know, you used the baseline, the 2011 census?
We use the current numbers that have been provided by statistics.
Okay, so that's 2016?
Yes. In the current financial year, the actual number of murders reported to the police is 19,016, representing an increase of 1.8% or 343 more murders than the previous financial year. Over the past 10 years, the incidence of murders gradually declined until the year 2011-12, when it started to increase annually to peak at its current level. The percentage change between 2011-12 and 2016-17 actually is 22.3%, or 3,462 more murders. A comparison of the figures for 2007-8, 2016-17 revealed that the murders have increased by 3.3%, or 616 counts over the 10-year period. The axis that we have used to represent the actual number of murders is the left axis, which is written actual murders, and then the axis that we have used to represent the percentage changes are on the right-hand side. So the 0 to 40 is the scale that we have used to show the percentage change per 100,000 population, and the raw numbers or the actual numbers are on the left-hand side. When one takes into consideration the population numbers, one is almost tempted to come to the conclusion that the murder per 100,000 of the population remained almost unchanged at 34.1 per 100,000 in the preceding financial year to 34.1 in the current financial year. Over the 10-year period, the ratio per 100,000 decreased by 36.7%. Decreased from 36.7% in 2007-2008 to 34.1 per 100,000 in the 2016-17 financial year. We did not compute the percentage changes on the ratios because that is statistically unacceptable to calculate the percentage change over a rate. Hence, we have just shown the rates as they are. From 2007-8 as 37.6 per 100,000 to 2016-17 at 34.1%. Then when we look at the provincial breakdown, the incidence of murder decreased in 5 provinces, with decreases ordered in increasing percentage change recorded in Limpopo with 9.5% decrease or 85 counts less, and in the Northern Cape with 7.5 or 28 counts less. Among the 4 provinces that recorded increases, the highest percentage change occurred in Mpumalanga with 11.1 or 95 counts, and Gauteng with 6.7% or 259 counts. During the 2015-16 financial year, the Northern Cape was the only province that had recorded.
That's the crime stats presented by the Minister for Mbalula in Parliament. We'll go there back live a little bit later. But right now, let me remind you of your news headlines. The North Gauteng High Court is expected to hear President Jacob Zuma's review application on the state capture report today. Meanwhile, for Mbalula, the Minister of Police is expected to release, is currently releasing the annual crime statistics in Parliament, and of course we'll bring you that story live again a little bit later. And today, families of the deceased 141 mentally ill patients will again be sitting as they call for the former Gauteng Health MEC, Padani Mashlangu, to be subpoenaed to answer for the deaths of their relatives. Now, those are your headlines. Now, the big story, of course, this morning, the North Gauteng High Court is expected to hear President Jacob Zuma's review application on the state capture report from today until Thursday. President Zuma announced last year that he intended to take former Public Protector Advocate Thuli Madonsela's state of capture report on judicial review. He criticized the report, particularly the remedial action that was set out by Madonsela, which recommended that the president should set up a judicial commission of inquiry into state capture. It also called for the inquiry to be chaired by a judge which has been nominated by Chief Justice Mogoeng. President Zuma maintains that the appointing of judges to head commissions in this country is his prerogative. Now, our reporter, Patricia Fasahi, spoke to the federal head of the DA, James Self.
Review into the remedial actions of the former public protector. Now, that application, of course, is playing out today here at the North Gauteng High Court. And one of the political parties who since have had a keen interest in this matter is the Democratic Alliance. And I'm joined by the federal head of the DA, Mr. James Self. Mr. Self, in short, if you can maybe again just bring us into the picture, why is it so important for the DA to be involved in this matter? Now, just last month we were here with you where your application to force the president to immediately implement those remedial actions, your application was rejected. So you're here again.
Yes, well, we all know that the allegations of state capture were very serious indeed. The former public protector was unable to complete her duty of investigating those claims. And so what we are here to do is to make sure that her remedial action, which was to ask the Chief Justice to appoint a judge to head up a commission of inquiry, is in fact implemented. President Zuma objects to that. He says that while he is prepared to appoint a commission of inquiry, he is not prepared to let the Chief Justice appoint the judge. Our argument is that President Zuma cannot be the judge and jury in his own inquiry, and as he is so integrally involved in the accusations of state capture, it is very important to restore trust in institutions of government that somebody completely neutral and completely outside of the President's influence is appointed to head up this commission.
And I guess what you are essentially aiming for is to preserve the credibility of such a commission of inquiry should it be established.
Yes, indeed. Credibility and integrity. And it must be in the open as well, so that everybody in South Africa can see the extent of state capture, who was responsible for it, what the extent of it was, and that in itself will help to restore public confidence in the institutions of government.
But how do we then respect the President's point in his affidavit where he said, but by implementing those remedial actions, ultimately that would mean an abdication of his constitutional responsibilities, his prerogative as a president to make those decisions?
Well, there's no real thing such as prerogative powers any longer. Firstly, prerogative powers need to be exercised rationally. And secondly, there are lots of executive powers that the public protector has affected, has commented on, whose remedial action has affected executive power, and nobody has taken any exception to that. What is so important and so holy about Section 84 of the Constitution? In our view, it is yet another exercise of executive power, and the public protector is entitled and constitutionally empowered to make remedial action that affects the powers in terms of Section 84.
But are we then not running the risk of giving the judiciary too much power over the executive? Isn't that what the President is trying to fight against?
Yes, that is his argument. I don't think his argument has much merit because the judiciary is involved in the exercise of executive power every single day. We are at this court and many other courts. The other day we were in court in Bloemfontein questioning the power of the National Director of Public Prosecutions to stop a prosecution. So it's very commonplace for the judiciary to make judgments about the extent of executive power. It is part of our constitutional order, and the President needs to get used to that.
And your application that was rejected last month, it ultimately also rests on the outcome of this application, isn't it? As you said last month, if the President's application is unsuccessful, yours immediately then takes effect.
That is correct. In our interpretation, if it is successful here in this application, the President will be forced immediately to appoint the Commission of Inquiry under a judge chosen by the Chief Justice.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. James Southcus, the DA Federal Head, Mr. James South, there giving us his interpretation of what will be playing out here. And as you know, the DA has, of course, a very keen interest in this matter. As Mr. James South just said now, if the President's application is unsuccessful, then the application that the party brought before this court last month then immediately takes to effect. And that would mean that President Jacob Zuma will have to, of course, honor the remedial actions by the former public protector, Advocate Thuli Madonsela.
As soon as the court is up and running, we'll go there live to bring you the latest in the court case in the North Gauteng High Court, where the President is launching the review application against the State of Capture report. Meanwhile, the Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa, has called for a new approach to youth unemployment. The Deputy President was speaking at a Harambee Youth Employment Accelerator Conference in Stellenbosch last night. He encouraged businesses to consider strategies to develop and employ young people.
At least more than 25% of young people in South Africa are unemployed. Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa says this problem can easily be solved if everyone comes on board.
We can actually revolutionize this country by getting young people into employment. I'm a firm believer that there is no problem without a solution. And this is one of those that we can find a solution for. Youth unemployment is not a problem that cannot be solved. It can be solved, and all we need to do is to find pathways, is to find ways in which we can create jobs for young people.
He encouraged business leaders to do more in resolving the unemployment crisis, especially among the youth. Ramaphosa's calls comes on the eve of the mini-budget speech by Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba. With a budget shortfall of an estimated more than 50 billion rands, observers believe this would be the most difficult mid-term budget statement ever. Manelisi Tubase, SABC News, Parliament.
An exciting opportunity and an absolute must for those with the spirit of adventure is a Kruger Park night game drive.
The railway station itself is already a sight to behold and offers gracious colonial-style buildings and serves as the departure and arrival point for all train journeys.
I wanted to dress with my best color. Being awarded to do the Serpentine Pavilion is the highest commission in my career. And I wanted just to come and show me with my best clothes, and that is blue.
Catch Trends Travel every Sunday from 12 to 1 for all the global travel and leisure trends.
The Pan-African Parliament, as a legislative body, could go a long way in continuing to promote women's rights in all African member states.
Moon will be elected president. A decisive win by him will provide much-needed stability in South Korea.
The Deputy President and the SADC Oversight Committee have been mandated to convene a multi-stakeholder national dialogue before elections.
5 teams are trapped in the relegation mud. These include Bloemfontein Celtic, 12 on the log, followed by Chipa United, Free State Stars and Baroka, who are second from the bottom, as well as Highlands Park, who have won only 4 matches.
We're on point with breaking stories, detailed economy and sport. Tune into Midday Report every Monday to Friday from 12 p.m.
The Solomon Mahlangu Freedom College, or SAMAFCO, was an educational institution established by exiled ANC members. The school was set up to equip South Africans that were becoming aware of the poor standard of education they were receiving under apartheid. That school was started in 1978 as a response to the influx of young South Africans into exile. Many had been part of the uprisings in South Africa in 1976. It was officially opened by Oliver Reginald Tambo in 1985. Joining us now in studio is John Pampoulos. He is one of the first teachers of the Solomon Mahlangu Freedom College, or SAMAFCO. A very good morning to you, sir, and welcome.
Yeah, good morning, Elvis.
You must have very fond memories of SAMAFCO. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, I do have fond memories of it, you know. As you mentioned now, after the Soweto uprisings in 1976, a lot of young people left South Africa. And of course, first they went to the frontline states, places like Swaziland, Lesotho, and so on. And many of them wanted to continue their education. Others were very keen to go into the military, into Umkhonto weSizwe. Those who wanted to go to school, the ANC tried to find schools for them in different parts of the world. And even some of those who wanted to go into the military, O.R. Tambo was very keen that they should actually try to, that they should be persuaded to actually finish their schooling first.
Yes, yes.
And so many of them also, there were found schools in various countries in Africa, places like Nigeria, Guinea, Egypt. Others went to places like Cuba, German Democratic Republic, it's East Germany, and so on. So the problem now was that you had these young people scattered all over the world. And there was a fear that they would lose their South African identity.
Yes.
And so it was decided to bring them all together. And Oliver Tambo approached the Tanzanian government, President Nyerere, for a piece of land on which a school could be built. And there was some land given on an old abandoned sisal estate outside Morogoro. And there the school was built.
What was some of the challenges for the students as well as for the teachers when setting up the Freedom College?
Okay. You know, the students had come from South Africa. Many of them had lost months, maybe more, of schooling. They now came to a new environment. Their parents weren't around. Some of them had actually been tortured in prison in South Africa and had run away from that. And so, you know, we had children in the early years who used to get nightmares and scream at night. So they had academic problems, but also social problems. The teachers, too, were teaching in a completely new environment. In the beginning, when the school was started in 1976, no, sorry, in 1979, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it was decided to establish it in 78. It was actually established in 79. Although the official opening wasn't for some years still.
Yes.
And so when the school was established, teachers came there mainly, or just about entirely from South Africa. And we were faced with teaching a different kind of curriculum. In fact, we had to create a curriculum while we were there. There weren't sufficient science teachers. And after a couple of years, maths and science teachers were brought in from other countries. The Dutch anti-apartheid movement, for example, provided some teachers. The German Democratic Republic also sent some teachers.
Yeah.
I was teaching history, and we had no textbook at all because the only history textbooks on South Africa were written in South Africa.
Yes.
And these things were unacceptable. They were, you know, a version of history which we considered to be distorted.
So what did you do in order to make sure that they get the proper history?
Well, I started to do research and write up notes for the students. And then after some years, the ANC sent me to London, where I could do the research, and I wrote a textbook for the school, a history textbook.
Now, according to your view, is there still a need for institutions such as the Solomon Mahlangu Freedom College?
Well, you know, it was a special school for people in exile, and so I suppose there's not that need anymore. But nonetheless, there are things we could learn from that school.
What are those things that we can learn from?
Let me tell you, the things, it wasn't all honey and roses in the beginning. When I first got there, my first day, I was asked to go and supervise the studies in the evening. And I went up to the classrooms, and I found students wandering all over the place. And I was wondering, what's happening here? And I'd say, comrades, it's study time. You should go to the classrooms. Yes, comrade, they would say. And then they would walk away towards the classrooms, and they would disappear. But, and the next day I went to school. People told me, look, sometimes the kids don't come to class. And I went to class, and the class was full. Everybody was there. I said, well, this is fine. The next day, though, half of them were gone, you know. I think they'd come to see the new teacher.
Yes.
But what fixed that soon enough was the student council, who decided that this was not in their interests. And they began to mobilize the students and to impose some discipline to ensure that everybody came to class on time, that they were serious about their studies, that they went to evening study classes or study periods. And I think that's one thing we could learn from them, is that, you know, with schools which are not functioning properly, there's actually a lot that can be contributed to by the students.
To take control of the situation.
Yes, to take control and to assist the teachers and the principal. Yeah.
Now, looking at the state of our education system currently, the matrics, by the way, is writing exams as we speak, but we've seen a wave of protests for fee-free education in this country. Do you think that the struggle has changed, perhaps?
Well, it's certainly changed. Yeah. I mean, look, you know, apartheid is finished. We've got a new government. We've got a new country, really. And so we are in a different stage of struggle. But now the struggle is to get a decent education for everybody, to provide resources for everybody, which is very difficult to do, and to ensure that students at school get the kind of education that will allow them to attend TVET colleges and universities. And we need to provide a skilled workforce for the country.
Yes. Now, yesterday when we were speaking to the Minister of Home Affairs, Ayanda Dlodlo, she indicated that it has been suggested that South Africans and South African learners be taught more about the former ANC President O.R. Tambo. Do you support that view, and is that relevant and necessary for our students today?
No, I think it is necessary, and I think it is important. And when you teach, though, about Oliver Tambo, it must be done in context. So what needs to be taught is the liberation movement that he was the leader of. And he was somebody that we can all learn from, actually. He was completely focused on the struggle for liberation in South Africa, but not narrowly focused. Like, for example, education he thought was very important, apart from the armed struggle, the international struggle, the mass struggle inside the country. And even with education, he insisted that at the school, we don't teach only the academic subjects, but we have cultural activities, sporting activities. We had a very good cultural groups. We had very good cultural groups, in particular our choir, our traditional dance groups, gumboot dancing groups, and they were much in demand among the Tanzanians, for public events.
Mr. Pampilas, I thank you so much for your time and joining us here in studio. Now that, of course, was Mr. Pampilas. He was the first teacher at the Solomon Mahlangu Freedom College, or SAMAFCO. Right now, Esidimeni, the family members of the Esidimeni victims, they say that they are nowhere closer to finding those answers to the deaths of their loved ones. Let's go there live.
Yes. So now, the question was, could she tell us the reasons why we should move, why the users were to be moved?
Did she attend the meeting alone?
Yes. No, she had some officials who attended.
Can you remember which officials attended?
Well, it was a few of them, but I don't remember the names, but they were there.
Was HOD there?
There was HOD.
Dr. Silibano, was he there?
Well, my colleagues will remind me, but now there were a few of them there.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
That's fine. And then you just tell us about the meeting?
And then it was proposed that the MEC was not present, but she's delaying. We should start the meeting, but we refused. We said, until she comes, we cannot start. Eventually, she arrived, and the meeting started.
Can I interrupt you there, Mr. Makhurane?
Yes.
Who organized the meeting?
The manager at Esidimeni organized the meeting.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yes.
Can you continue telling us
And
about the
then
meeting?
when she came, because she delayed, we had already had an agenda from our side that we had questions, because time was just limited. So we requested that we should pose those questions to the MEC. And our question was, can she tell us any reason why the move should take place? And the answer was to reduce costs. Then we said, good enough. Can you describe when you say cost? Can you give us a figure when you say cost? Says annually a building can cost 123,712,000. So that is too much for the government to spend. But because some of us, among the families, we deal with property. We dealt with properties. In fact, some of us are retired. We dealt with properties. But we said...
What did she mean by a building would cost 23.7 million? What building?
Not only building, but include the costs of...
I mean the construction cost?
Construction cost, but including all the costs that is spent to
construct the facility?
Yes.
Okay.
Was she talking about the Life Esidimeni facilities?
It was Life Esidimeni, if I'm correct, yes.
So just to clarify, Mr. Makhurane, was she saying it would cost, was it 123 million
Yes.
to continue with the care of
With the
mental health
care
care
of
users
better
at
health,
Life
yeah.
Esidimeni?
Absolutely, yes.
Or to construct a new facility
No, to continue.
to continue,
To continue, yes.
business?
And that couldn't be appreciated. It must stop.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Council, what's the answer? What's 123 million for?
Justice, it appears that the 123 million was to continue the operation of Life Esidimeni to look after the mental health care users.
So it's just the cost of keeping the mental health care users there,
That's my understanding,
not the
Justice.
cost to construct a similar or comparable facility.
That's my understanding, Justice.
Yes, it's correct, Justice. And then we had a suggestion that, yes, we hear, but we are against the move. We had a suggestion that now, should it be Plan B, then we as the family volunteer to assist, especially with properties, so that now we should cut that figure into half.
What do you mean assist with properties?
Assist the properties that now we believe that we should use our expertise, put them on the table that we hear you, but now here's a suggestion. This is what can come up from the families, because we have the interest of our families, our people, which are the users. And she noted that, and then of course, in conclusion, it was that it will be appropriate to do that, to tell us when it is time to move. And it was suggested that it should be in March, but later it was announced it will not be March, it will be in June 2016. The move will be in June 2016.
Did you tell the MEC why you didn't want the mental health care users placed in other facilities?
Yes, we put all the benefits that we appreciated. We even said when it comes to any funding or donations, we could go all out and assist, because this is life of our people. We are prepared to sacrifice and compromise.
And what was the MEC's response?
Well, the MEC's response was, look, since I hear you, because we requested that now, should there be any move, we should be told, given an allowance of 3 weeks before the move happens. Remember now, it's no more March, it will be in June 2016. So that was the understanding of the ending of the meeting, to say we still have some time to hear from the MEC.
Did she ever agree not to move the users?
Yes, she agreed that now I'll consider your request.
And the 3-week period you spoke about?
Yes.
What was the purpose of being informed 3 weeks before the move?
The purpose was that should there be any deviation or changes, remember, Plan B was that should you insist in moving, then convince us that the next place will be as beautiful, as compliant as this facility of Life Esidimeni.
Did you know any of these next places that mental health care users were being moved to?
We hardly knew of these next places. This is why we wanted to be part of, that investigations of those new premises, whatever it could be, yes.
And so you're saying you wanted to go and see those new premises?
We wanted to go and see those premises.
Where was Christopher ultimately moved to?
Christopher was moved to the west side of Atteridgeville, which is between Diepsloot and Atteridgeville, an NGO called Rebafeni.
Did you see Rebafeni before Christopher was moved there?
I never saw Rebafeni before Christopher was moved there.
Did you know that Christopher was being moved to Rebafeni?
I never knew until on the 27th of May, while I was driving, there's a call that came and say, it's from a voice of a lady that we are moving Christopher the next day, meaning on the 28th of May.
Of what year?
2016.
And who was the lady who called you?
The lady sounded like Mandisa, the social worker, because they are Selina and Mandisa. Yes, and then I said, but this is a surprise. The ending of the last meeting, our understanding was we should be informed 3 weeks before. Then she said, sir, I am doing my work. You should just come and take Christopher. If you don't want him to go, come and take him. Then while I was just trying to talk to her, the phone, was cut off. And the next gentleman who phoned me after some seconds is T. Seto. This T. Seto, I thought it would be somebody at staff of Esidimeni, but from an understanding, I was told by this very lady that he is the one, because this lady didn't know the direction where Christopher was. So T. Seto is the man who gave me this direction of 165 Henops Road, that is next to Atteridgeville. That's how.
That's the family of the victims that perish in the Life Esidimeni tragedy. We break away from there right now because the North Gauteng High Court is expected to hear President Jacob Zuma's review application on the state capture report from today until Thursday. Let's go live.
In the recent unreported matter between South African Reserve Bank versus Public Protector and 5 others, and the case is cited there, a judgment by my brother Midday dated 15 August 2017, the court had to deal with a challenge by the Reserve Bank against the remedial action taken by the Public Protector. At paragraph 9 of that judgment, the court said the following, quote, despite initially opposing the application, the Public Protector filed an answering affidavit in which she conceded the merits and consented to all the relief sought. She has agreed that her remedial action is unlawful in that only Parliament has the power to amend the Constitution and that she has no power to dictate to Parliament. Then comes the rhetorical question which the judge asked against paragraph 33. There the judgment reads, the question to be asked is if that is what she said recently about Parliament, will her view be different when it is the President who claims the sole constitutional authority to appoint a commission of inquiry? And says the judge, that question will have to be answered on the 23rd October 2017, which is, well, it should read 24, which is today. The significance of that lies at 2 places. The one is the Public Protector appears to consider as a matter of law that there are certain things that the constraints of the Constitution and her powers she can't overcome. And in that matter, she considered that she cannot tell Parliament what to do. And the reason that concession was made was because that power to make laws and to amend the Constitution resides with Parliament and nobody else. And it is difficult to conceive of a different answer when that power resides with the President, as we have seen in section 82(4) F of the Constitution. Of course, it becomes appropriate at this stage then to go to the August judgment to see what Justice Murphy had to say about the separation of powers doctrine. There we would recall that's the South African Reserve Bank judgment, and we propose to deal with paragraph 43 and 44 of that judgment. On the bundle of authorities, we will find those 2 paragraphs on page 503. Shall we refresh our minds what that matter was about, or what that remedial action was concerned with?
Advocate Esidimeni, I would recommend you go to the nub of it. We are aware what that matter is.
But the point of the judgment is, again, the same point, that the public protector does not have the power to offend against the separation of power doctrine.
Yeah.
There is another judgment about which there cannot be any contestation, which also makes that point. That's the NEF judgment. It's also part of the bundle of authorities. It's also one of the judgments of the bundle of authorities,
yes.
And it appears on page 324 onwards.
Yes.
That again is a judgment where the public protector's remedial action included people to pay sorry money and things like those. And the court said he does not have the power to go there. The UDM matter also makes the same point about what the executive powers are.
Yes.
And I will refer your lordships to, and her ladyship, to para 92 of that judgment.
What page?
On page 521 of the bundle of authorities. The court held that to say about the Speaker of Parliament that a particular vote of no confidence in the President must be by way of secret ballot would be overstepping the mark. The court stopped only at a point where it said the Speaker may have misconceived her powers. She does have the power to direct that vote of no confidence to be open or secret. We emphasize that point to say that too is a judgment binding on this court, which makes it plain that the separation of powers doctrine is good law, still remains good law, it's part of our constitution, and the public protector is also subject to that as a point of law. And the justification which the public protector seeks to give for trespassing on the separation of powers doctrine does not sell. It does not have any authority in law, and there are ample authorities of the judgments of these courts that make it plain that she has no authority to transgress those boundaries.
Do I then understand you to be saying under no circumstances, whatever the circumstances may be, can such dictation happen?
It cannot. And very interestingly, even the court, in terms of section 172 of the Constitution, is authorized in very limited spaces to go and pronounce itself on the powers of the legislature or the executive. So not even courts are able to go there unless authorized by the Constitution, and there are a plethora of judgments that tell us that to be correct. The other point we want to visit is probably one of the strong points that we want to make in this regard. And it is to look at what the power of the public protector is in terms of the Constitution itself.
Do you mind if I just raise one or two things on the justification that public protector raises? The first one which you've mentioned is resource constraints. And she has set out what it would take for such an investigation to be done by her office. I think some 31 million or so. This is a hypothetical question to you. On its own, viewed on its own, that reason to recommend the remedial action we're dealing with, what's your view to that? That on its own, that I don't have the resources, My people, my investigators are stretched. They're carrying more than a number of cases together. I cannot do justice to this investigation.
The reason is bad in law for a number of reasons. The first is lack of resources cannot be a basis to outsource work that which Parliament said it must be done by the Office of the Public Protector. What you could have done, if that was a constraint, was to approach Parliament and say, you must make it possible for me to discharge my constitutional obligation. There must be a special appropriation which allocates adequate funding for me to discharge this obligation. You don't get outside that problem by then outsourcing the work to a structure that's not even there.
What do you mean by outsourcing?
By saying the investigation which the Constitution says must be done by the Public Protector should be done instead by a Commission of Inquiry. That is what he says. Now, let us address this point to show that she must be hopelessly mistaken to go down that road. Section 82 has a triad to it. 84 rather. 182. Huh? I keep interchanging the two. Section 182, which deals with the powers of the Public Protector, has a particular sequence and logic to it. Under Section 182.1, it identifies the Public Protector, as regulated by national legislation, is to A, investigate any conduct in the affairs or in the public administration in any sphere of government that is alleged or suspected to be improper or to result in any impropriety or prejudice. So in very explicit language, we are told her duties are to investigate improper conduct in very specified areas of government. And then says, in most significant way, to report on that conduct. So there is a direct link between what she is to investigate and what she is to do. So one expects when you see a public protector's report, make a report, it must be on the conduct that is being complained about. She must be making a report on that conduct. We know in this instance it's common cause that she did not make any findings at all. She says in the first investigation there are certain indications that show to this, that if correct, and that, etc. She does not make any findings at all.
She's required to make findings on fact. She's required to make such findings.
Indeed, because if we read Section 182...
What about findings of fact, final conclusions?
I beg your Lordship's pardon?
What about findings of fact?
Yes, she must report on that conduct, which is a factual finding that must be made about the complaint. And it is very significant because B says exactly that. It uses the word report on that conduct.
Yes, but Mrs. Lena, it doesn't say that she must make a finding on that conduct. She must report on that conduct. And that is basically what we have at hand now. That in terms of the report.
No. May I make a submission that firstly, if we take A into account, it tells us that it is conduct you are looking into. not the allegations. It is suspected conduct. It is allegations that are made about that conduct. And B then says, you must make a report on that conduct, i.e., it must be conduct which has been found to either be conduct of impropriety, that is what you must report on, or it must be conduct which can result in impropriety or the prejudice. So there is a direct connection between what we find in A and that which we find in B. And then it makes coherent sense to get C, which is then take remedial action, i.e. that remedial action must be a correction of the conduct which has been found to have caused the prejudice or the impropriety or resulting in impropriety or prejudice. So there is a coherent logic that one cannot take a remedial action where there is no conduct of maladministration in terms of the Public Protectors Act, alternatively impropriety in terms of Section 182(1)(a) of the Constitution. And we're saying this is pretty significant because, as we will demonstrate with other authorities, there ought to be a correlation or a nexus that the remedial action which the public protector takes is a remedy against the impropriety or the correction of that impropriety or the correction of that prejudice. And we make the submission that a commission of inquiry does not achieve that result. And we make the submission that until such time as a public protector has found conduct to be improper, until such time as she has found conduct to cause or result in prejudice within the contemplation of Section 182, she cannot even make a report. Because the report which she is authorized by law to make would be a report on that conduct.
The language of the section you've read, I think it would be helpful for me. Is it peremptory in terms of the investigation and the report?
It is peremptory, my Lord. And it is peremptory because it is a very narrow interrelated connection between A, B, and C. It is inconceivable that, as some of the respondents want to contend, it's inconceivable that you can make a remedial action on conduct that you have found to be lawful. Because what are you remedying? I mean, even common sense would tell us, and I digress a bit, you cannot prescribe a remedy for a condition you haven't diagnosed. You cannot prescribe a remedy for an ailment that is yet to be described. And that's how this language is used in the Constitution. It is a remedial action to cure that which you have found to constitute conduct of impropriety or prejudice. And that point is made very plain in the South African Reserve Bank judgment. There you'd recall that there was never any complaint laid with the public protector relating to the mandate of the Reserve Bank. And there the court said, then you can't go even there. There must be a complaint. You must have found there is something worrying about that complaint. It must be a complaint of the nature that shows impropriety or likely to result in prejudice. And then you can go and take remedial action in relation to it. I may unduly be burdening the court with judgments which I may mistakenly take to be obvious. And the distinction which is sought to be made about whether that case is distinguishable or not is one without a difference. Because on all fours, The Reserve Bank judgment makes the point, and it is a point considered by the public protector, that the constitutional power to take remedial action cannot arise unless, as we call it, the jurisdictional facts are present for the public protector to take that remedial action. But what the public protector does with her remedial action is to say that investigation is one that will be done by a commission of inquiry. But she can't do that, because what she is then doing is to say, whereas Parliament has reposed this obligation and power on me, I will have a commission of inquiry do that. Let me illustrate why that is not even competent. A commission of inquiry is an advisory body.
I think let's not lose sight of the fact what she has recommended about what that commission of inquiry should do, because she doesn't leave it open-ended.
Yes.
So it's not the normal commission of inquiry that she's recommended. She's recommended that when it's done within 180 days, it must report to the president, who must then report to Parliament within 14 days. So I don't want us to lose sight of that fact.
The sting of the submission we're making is, can a commissioner of inquiry take remedial action? The answer is clearly no. Now she wants a commission of inquiry, which we say does not have the power to take remedial action, and says, take that report and give it to the president to onward it to Parliament. That misconceives exactly what the complaint is. Those who complain to the public protector come there with a strong belief and understanding in law that they're entitled, if the complaint is found to have merit, that there will be remedial action taken on it. And now she takes that power out of the Public Protector Act, out of the Constitution, and says, I'm giving it to a commission of inquiry. And as we make the submission, a commission of inquiry can never have that power. Apart from offending the separation of powers doctrine, she is misallocating legislative powers under the Constitution and the Public Protector to a commission of inquiry. Now, let us see how that subverts the sequence that is to be there in terms of Section 182. And maybe let me illustrate it even with a higher example. The Executive Members Ethics Act is a special piece of legislation which Parliament has said the public protector must investigate, and it has a process in terms of that act. Section 4 of it will tell us any breaches or alleged breaches of the code of conduct are to be investigated by the public protector and within specified timelines, and if those specified timelines are not met, to get an extension no longer than X, and then to report to Parliament on it. Now the public protector, by this remedial action, says the breach of ethics must go and be investigated by a commission of inquiry. Where does she get that power? And the submission we make is she doesn't. Because in substance, what then happens is that even the commission can do nothing if it ever found the breach of the code of conduct to be present in relation to a particular complaint. I don't know if I should take your lordship and their leadership to Section 4 of the Public Protector and look at what process must follow an investigation in relation to that. That would be Section 4 of the Public Protector Act.
Advocate Semenya, I think what would be helpful, I think we've heard your submission so far. Would I be fair to sum up your case in this regard in the following terms? The Constitution expects or obligates the public protector to investigate a complaint. Obligates, I use the word, and it also obligates the public protector to make a finding arising from that investigation in a report. And in that report, if she has found wrongdoing, it obligates her to recommend remedial action. I use the word obligate deliberately. Now, your submission says to us she has done none of this, so whatever remedial action she has recommended is not remedial action as understood within that legislative premise.
That's why, Judge President, we make the point that it is probably one of our most cogent arguments we can make why the review ought to succeed. That her remedial action cannot be unrelated to any conduct which she must make, and I couldn't have put it more lucid than you have. That conduct is of a nature that she found points to maladministration, either in terms of the Public Protectors Act, or amounts to impropriety or prejudice, as the Constitution says. Absent that, she can't claim to have the constitutional power to take remedial action.
You use the word points to wrongdoing or points to a violation. Again, and I repeat the same point, are you suggesting that she must actually make a factual finding that such conduct exists, such maladministration?
Or she's obligated?
Or can she merely say, I suspect, based on the totality of the evidence that I have at my disposal, that such conduct,
no,
which needs to be further investigated?
Now, Lord, let's go back again to 182A. What she is to investigate are allegations or suspicions of impropriety. So she cannot make findings on allegations. She cannot make allegations of suspicions. She can't report on suspicions, or she can't report on allegations. She must investigate those. And having investigated them, she must then make a finding that they point, I'm using that word again, she has found that there is conduct which is improper or which results in any impropriety or prejudice. Because what are you remedying if you haven't made a finding of impropriety?
A mere suspicion isn't good enough.
How can you remedy a suspicion? That's the difficulty and the rhetorical question one would ask. It cannot just be a suspicion. If that suspicion is found to be without merit, how can you then take a remedial action?
Mr. Semenya, let me start from the back, moving forward, in respect of your argument. The remedial action has to relate to conduct found wanting, that she must report on. And that emanates on her having investigated that conduct. Is that the circle that you're trying to get to?
That is a circle that I'm trying to allude to. And it must be in that way if she is acting constitutionally. If we find that she hasn't run the circle as the Constitution contemplates she must, then she's acting unconstitutionally. She's acting unlawfully. And this is what has happened here, because we know a commission of inquiry is not a remedy of any of the complaints that were laid with her. On the contrary, that commission is intended to go and investigate, to do exactly what the law says must be done by her.
That's the President's review application currently underway in the North Gauteng High Court. But let me remind you of your top stories this hour at 1100 hours Central Africa time. The North Gauteng High Court is currently sitting to hear President Jacob Zuma's review application on the state capture report. The state in the Life Esidimeni arbitration says that contact has been made with the former Gauteng Health MEC Kodani Mshlangu and that she's willing to testify. And the Police Minister Fikile Mbalula has just briefed the Police Committee in Parliament on the annual crime statistics for 2016 and 17. Those are all your headlines, but we go back now live to the state in the Life Esidimeni arbitration that said that contact has been made with the former Gauteng Health MEC Kodani Mshlangu and that she's willing to testify. The state says Mshlangu is writing exams and they are looking at dates for her to testify. Meanwhile, Lucas Mokhorani is the witness on the stand today. His brother Christopher died in the tragedy. Mokhorani says that they had a meeting with the former Gauteng Health MEC after the announcement that patients will be moved, and they also spoke about cost. Mokhorani says that Mshlangu said it would cost the government 123 million rand to continue to keep patients at Life Esidimeni. He says they objected the move of the patients. He says he was informed that his brother died in June 2015. The arbitration continues. Meanwhile, Police Minister Fikile Mbalula says that crime in general has declined, but contact crimes like murder and robbery have shown an upward trend. Mbalula has been briefing the Police Committee in Parliament on the annual crime statistics for 2016 and 17. He says while robbery is considered more policeable than other contact crimes, it also contributes extensively towards other contact crimes.
The South African Police Service National Crime Statistics measure 21 serious crimes. 17 of these crimes are reported by community, and the other 4 are detected as a result of police-initiated operations. Put differently, the 17 crime categories are supposed to decrease, whilst the other 4, which are illegal possession of firearms and ammunition, driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs, possession of and dealing in drugs and sexual offenses detected by the police, are supposed to increase as a result of police action or detection. The 17 community-reported serious crimes have continually decreased during the last half of the 10-year period from 2007-2008 to 2016-17 under consideration in this crime of statistics for the 2016-17 financial year. However, the contact crime figures, which generally reflected a fairly consistent decrease during the first of the 10-year period under discussion, have increased over the preceding 3 financial years. In the financial year under review, a reversal is observed and a decrease was recorded. Despite the decrease in this financial year, some of the individual categories, such as murder and robbery with aggravating circumstances, have over the past 4 financial years tended to reflect an upward trend. Among the contact crimes, robberies are still of particular concern. Robbery is not only considered a more policeable crime than the other contact crimes, but also increasingly considered as an important contributor to the other contact crimes. Allow me to make an example. A simple robbery, because serious when a weapon is used in the process or when assault occurs or a murder or rape occurs during the said robbery. So robbery must be treated as serious focus area. Some of the subcategories of robbery with aggravating circumstances, namely the trio crimes, carjacking, house robbery, and business robbery, including hijackings, which are to a greater extent organized in nature. Analysis conducted by the national and provincial offices revealed that most of, particularly the trio crimes, are organized crimes in nature and need a different approach to crime combating. I have emphasized the need for intelligence-led crime prevention and fighting plans. Division of Crime Intelligence should play a vital and prominent role in our approach.
Well, that's the latest crime stats. It's continuing currently in Parliament. Meanwhile, the North Gauteng High Court is hearing President Jacob Zuma's review application on the state capture report from today until Thursday. Let's go back there live.
And report on that conduct and then take remedial action. What it doesn't contemplate is that a commission of inquiry will then take its findings and go give them to the president and then to Parliament. So even the process by which that delegation is sought to be done is inconsistent with the language of the Act. So we know she cannot rest on the basis of Section 64C, Roman figure 2. That is not what she's contemplating must happen in relation to the Commission of Inquiry. The other remote area where she has the power to delegate, we find it in Section 7.3 of the Public Protector Act. There it reads, the Public Protector may, at any time prior to or during an investigation, request any person at any level of government. That tells us it's not a commission. Subject to the law governing the terms and conditions of employment of such a person. We know that's not a commission. Performing a public function, subject to any law governing the terms and conditions of the appointment of such a person. We know that's not a commission. Otherwise, subject to the jurisdiction of the Public Protector. We know Commission of Inquiry is not subject to the jurisdiction of the Public Protector. To assist him or her under his or her supervision and control. And we must emphasize that. A Commission of Inquiry is not going to be subject to her supervision. It is not going to be subject to her control. So she cannot purport even to do it in terms of Section 7.3 of the Public Protectors Act. Now, in our submission, therefore, the Public Protector must tell us where she derives the power that an investigation submitted in her office must be investigated by somebody else. And the two areas that the Act contemplates are areas where it is a particular entity that is identified, a public entity, that is going to do that investigation or part of the investigation and then report to her. And as we make the submission, she too is bound by the Constitution to the extent that she can perform no function or exercise any power unless that which is located in the Constitution or the law. So those two areas cannot clothe the Public Protector with the power to have the investigation submitted to her be done by an entity other than those contemplated in the two sections. And the Commission of Inquiry is not one of them. And she does not have that power in terms of Section 182, neither does she have it in terms of the Public Protector Act. And for that reason alone, her remedial action stands to be set aside, reviewed and set aside. I propose to go to another area. Would this be a convenient time?
I thought we still had some minutes. What time is it now?
Okay. I was going to start on the subject, but we do.
Which subject? I think you've covered most of those that deal with the remedial action.
No, there's still another element about the remedial action which I said to address. Yes. You would recall that the public protector, having made the concessions that they have made, they then seek to say there are statutes, and in this instance, there are statutes that make the exercise of a power have a duty to it. And they rely on the Van Rooyen judgment for that proposition. They're mistaken, again, as a matter of law. What the Van Rooyen judgment concerned itself with was the question of recommendations by the Magistrates Commission. That if a Magistrates Commission recommends that a magistrate be suspended, the President has the power, the Minister has the power to take that recommendation to Parliament. And that judgment then says, in such circumstances, there is a duty resting on the individual holding the power to do so. And that is understandable. If there is a power to issue a license and an applicant meets the requirement for the issue of a license, then the duty arises that the functionary must issue that license. There are no difficulties with that as a proposition of law. It does not apply in this instance for at least two reasons. There's a judgment of the Constitutional Court, the Daniel judgment. It is page 36 of the bundle of authorities. And to read paragraph 1 together with paragraph 12. Paragraph 1 says the court, and it gives us the context within which section 84 2F is to be construed. There in paragraph 1, the applicant, Mr. Frederick Kundrat Daniel, seeks an order setting aside an earlier order issued by this court. This application is a sequel to the application lodged in this court by the applicant under that case number. In that case, the applicant sought an order declaring that the President's failure to appoint an independent commission of inquiry was inconsistent with the Constitution. In addition, the applicant sought an order directing the President to establish the commission within 10 days. Although the court there was concerned with the question of its exclusive jurisdiction in terms of 167, it makes a very telling element about the nature and content of the section 84.2 power. It says against paragraph 12, drawing from Doctors for Life International, this court in Van Abo, President of the Republic of South Africa, held that obligation in section 167.4E means a duty specifically imposed on the President to perform specified conduct. Examined in this context, section 84.2F does not impose a duty on the President, but a power which may be exercised at his discretion. Accordingly, the President's failure to appoint a commission of inquiry does not amount to a failure to fulfill a constitutional obligation. We're saying, even though addressing the question of exclusive jurisdiction, the court was alive to the fact whether or not there is an implied duty in section 84.2F of the Constitution. And what it says against that paragraph is that that is only a power and not a duty. But the other settled difficulty with the contention which is sought to be advanced by the respondent It is one that is measured against her own concession that she does not have the power to do it. Ordinarily, she uses the word. And one wonders why the word ordinarily would then clothe what she does not have as a power under the Constitution or under any law to then clothe it with some legality. Would we be convenient now?
Thank you. Court will adjourn.
Is it? I've had a practice of stealing my constitution.
That was President Jacob Zuma's review application in the North Gauteng High Court. We'll go back live there. They've just adjourned for now. But as you know, we are also live at Life Esidimeni. The arbitration process, let's go there live.
And who else was staying with you and Motofela?
It was another brother of mine who also passed away. It's Elliot Lohwabe.
And your mother?
And my mother.
And what was it like living with Motofela? Could he talk?
No, Motofela couldn't talk.
Could he walk?
He could walk.
Could he eat by himself?
He could eat by himself.
Could he bath by himself?
Yeah, he could bath himself.
And he could dress himself?
Yeah, also he could dress himself. The problem is that it seems as if he was having an epilepsy. Time and two, he will fall because he has to need some assistance.
And you were the one, you said, that provided that assistance?
Yeah.
How old was Motofela when he went to Life Esidimeni Waverley?
Yeah, he was a small boy, around about 15 years, yeah.
And you say that he was there for about 33 years?
Yeah, 33 years.
And what was it like? What were the conditions like at Life Esidimeni?
Yeah, let me tell you, Councillor, at Life Esidimeni, in fact, there was a new home for Motofela. In fact, they treat him so well. Because I remember the first year when he was there, in December, when it was open day, we took him for a week because we were instructed how should he drink his medicine and what time should he eat, what time should he start sleeping and whatever. And then he mustn't always stay at the TV.
So you took him home during the festive season?
Yeah, we call it the open day.
The open day.
Yeah.
And how long did he come home for?
Yeah, most of the time. If I took him this year, then the next year, somebody will take him, my aunt, and then we took him to Soweto.
And when you took him home, he was taking medication?
No, he was taking medicine.
How many times a day?
3 times a day.
And did he have any epileptic fits when he was at home?
No, at that time, no. The epilepsy was, seems as he was simmering or whatever, I can call it. It was handled correctly with those medications.
And how often during the year did you go and visit Motofela?
Every end of the month I have to go there.
And were you happy with how he was at Life Esidimeni?
Yeah, that's why I said when he arrived at the first year after he arrived at Life Esidimeni in Waverley, that was his new home. I was happy.
Who would go with you to visit him?
Yeah, always it was my late brother. Then I started to marry, and then my wife started to take care because he was a dental therapist, my late wife. Started to take care of him because he could go at any time. He was driving, could go any time to go and visit. And sometimes he would tell me that today I was at Waverley to come and visit Motofela because he was close to her.
How did you find out that the Life Esidimeni Waverley was going to close?
Yeah, as it was indicated here, we found that on the open day, 2015, yeah, December. that it seems as if this center is going to be closed, but they are not sure. But they will come and inform us.
Who told you?
Yeah, at that time there was some other managers and sisters at Waverley. I couldn't remember their names.
Okay. And you took Motofela home.
On that day, on open day, we took him to, and then because we bring him on the 3rd of January 2016.
And did you hear anything more when you brought him back about the closure of Life Esidimeni?
No, my wife started to ask, is this true that this center is going to close? They said to him, we are still waiting for any response from the government that this thing is going to close or what.
When did you find out that Motofela had been moved?
Yeah, you see now it started as an heartache. On the 6th of May, 2016, my wife went to Life Esidimeni to go and check. He was with his friends. They found that Motofela is no more there. Then he asked some other sisters, I think the name was Dorothy or who, to say, where's Motofela? Then the sister told him that these patients have been moved without our knowledge, and then we don't know where they are going to. But he advised to say, the first bench is gone, we don't know, and the second bench is gone, we don't know where they are, but start to look at Sterkfontein, Vetporki, and Selby. And then the last place where you can go is Tagalan in Soweto.
And did you look for Motofela at those facilities?
Sorry?
Did you look for Motofela?
Yeah, we started journey on the 6th of, in fact it was on the 8th of May. We didn't find Motofela. Up until on the 22nd of June, where we were being informed, because my wife was is just like a nurse, and then he got some contact with nurses. He was busy phoning. We got a call that they've received another guy, but they're still waiting for his ID to be brought. Then my wife must come and check if this is Motofela.
What facility was this?
It was in Kalinen.
Okay.
So on the 23rd, me and my wife went to Kalinen.
Sorry, the 23rd
of June. We went to Kalinen. We waited there at the reception from 10 o'clock up until 2 o'clock. Because Daphne at that time was busy. Then at 2 o'clock, they say...
What do you mean she was busy?
They say Daphne was busy.
But were you in the reception area?
Yeah, I was in the reception.
Had she seen you when you arrived?
No, the nurses told us that you wait here. You are not allowed to go to any ward because the person that you want to identify, you don't know him on which ward is he belonging to. Then we were...
You were told to wait for the social worker?
Yeah, for the social worker to come.
Daphne Ndlovu.
Yeah, Daphne Ndlovu, who came and testified here.
Yes.
Then run about...
Did they tell you why you have to wait for 5 hours?
No, she couldn't explain to us. She says, no, she was busy.
4 hours?
Yeah, she says she was busy. Because I was angry, but I have to hold my horses because I want to be helped.
And what did she say when you finally...
Yeah, he says, can you come and identify this guy, because you told us that this is somebody with epilepsy or whatever. Certain people have been brought. I think it's one that time when Siabadinga and the anchor were closed. Then he says other people have been brought in here. Some have been brought here with open baggies. We don't know them. So can you come and identify?
So she asked you to identify one of the patients that had been admitted to Canada.
Yeah, we found Motofela was sleepy. They bring the stretcher, in fact. I mean the wheelchair, not the stretcher. And then we found him in a wheelchair. And then we identify him as Motofela. Then we were shocked in the state that we found Motofela.
Did he have identity documents with him?
No, the identity document, we got it on the 25th of June.
Did he have medical records with him?
No, we didn't have any medical record. If you can see from the statement that I wrote, and then there's an affidavit that I wrote to give it to Section 27. On the 16th of August, or the 18th, if my memory serves me well, I made a sit-in that office because they have to call the security. Then I tell the security, you there, you don't know me. Then they called somebody from SAPS. Then I said to him, you there.
Where was this? Where were you?
It was in Kalinen.
Okay, and what was the purpose? What were you waiting for?
The purpose that I was looking for, I was worried with the medical records of Motofela in order to attest to myself, why does he look like this? What's wrong with him? Did he have anything that was brought to him? The thing that we got, it was only the ID.
So that sit-in was on the 25th of August. What did it date? Did I miss the date?
It was on the, if I may check.
Look, you went there on the 23rd of June. 22nd, you were phoned to come and check and identify. 23rd, you went there and they brought him, you waited for 4 hours and he was brought in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And you were asked whether there were medical records. You said not. And then you tell us about the sit-in where they tried to remove them, and you said they dare not. When was
that? It was the 16th of August, because I was tired about that.
16th of August?
Yeah, of August.
And your brother was still there, and he was still alive?
Yeah, he was still alive, because I can see his health was deteriorating.
So he was there alive, but you saw that his condition was worsening?
No, on the 16th. She passed away on the 15th of August, sorry.
Oh, he passed away on the 15th of August.
And then on the 16th, that's where now I start to make a sit-in that office of Matilda Mawuza. I say, you can lock your doors wherever. Tomorrow you'll still find me here. As long as I'm having my cigarette and water, I don't care. I'm used to confinement.
But you have to tell us, how did you come to know of your brother's death? Or
yeah.
The last time I heard was when you went and visited. He was on a wheelchair.
Yeah, on that day, they brought him on the wheelchair. We identified him. And then on the 24th, we went there. It's where now they brought his identity. Then Daphne told us that he's got an identity. They've sent it. Then I asked him, who gave it to you? He says it's one of the officials. You are too inquisitive, Mr. Lwabi. You are asking lots of questions. Then I said to him, it's fine. Then what about the medical records? He says, that one they will provide. They say they are coming back.
Perhaps we can just pause there. You mentioned that when you saw him in his wheelchair, you were shocked, he had deteriorated. Can you describe to us what he looked like?
No, He was bleeding sometimes on his mouth because if you can check the picture, the thing is that she was bleeding. We have to use some tissues to wipe his mouth so that we can give him food. And then when you give him food, you will check that everything is fine inside the plastic bag before, to make sure that all the food that we give him is done.
So he was bleeding from his mouth?
Yeah, I was bleeding from his mouth.
And do you know what was causing that?
I asked the sisters there to say, what's wrong with it? They say, maybe it falls away, you know, she's got an epilepsy, whatever.
Had anybody seen him fall?
No, nobody told me. You see, the councillor in CCRC is not a mental health institution. People should know about this. It's a rehabilitation for drugs. It's not a mental. So, because if you enter that at that facility, you'll find that other people are talking to themselves alone, without nobody will scream, because that person is there, has been brought there to come and rehabilitated. He was under the influence of drugs.
So when you went to visit Motofela in Cullinan, did you see care workers interacting with the patients?
No. We were only allowed to be in the reception. And then when I tried to see, I'm working maybe on the other wards, the security will stop me to say, what are you looking for?
Okay. And so you're saying you tried to see other areas of Cullinan, but you were stopped? Justice, I wonder, I'm just looking at the time, and I wonder if it's an appropriate time to take a break.
It is indeed. We're going to adjourn. It's 11:30. We'll resume at 12 o'clock.
That is the Life Esidimeni arbitration process here in Parktown, Johannesburg. Of course, they're taking a break right now. But as you know, the crime statistics 2016-17 is being released. Let's go back live to Parliament with the Minister, Fikile Mbalula.
To the NFP honourable member with regard to the Defence Force, that is being processed as we speak. With the President, I'm standing here also as the Acting Minister of Defence Force. So in this particular matter, we're processing the issue.
So, Minister, you are deploying today. Chair, may I say that is very, very frightening to have the Minister combine those two portfolios.
Look, we are responding to an alarming situation with regard to our communities where there are violent acts that are undertaken by violent criminals. Now, this is not static. What we're looking forward to is not static, permanent stationing of Defence Force to do the policing work. But we're looking at tactical deployment and them being led by the South African Police Service. So the question of risk in relation to this deployment is something in the context of our security architecture need to be taken into consideration. Because we don't want to be accused that we brought the Defence Force to the townships to basically maim innocent people. But we are there to increase the numbers, to contain the violent activities in specific areas, not everywhere in the country. And that deployment from the point of operational plan in terms of joints will be done properly and with the necessary care in terms of what needs to be done on the ground. That is why we're not looking for a static deployment, but something in the context of Operation Fiela, that we get into an area We sweep guns. We sweep dangerous criminals. We do all of those things that are important that needs to be done. When we get into a township, we clean, we comb, we sweep. And with the South African Defence Force, it does not mean that police have basically fallen back and they are failing in their task, but it's a question of reinforcement. And that is what we're looking at applying. The statistics are speaking to us. In Gauteng and the Western Cape and areas of KwaZulu-Natal, and that is what we're basically looking at. We are implementing that decision, but we don't deploy. The president will give us a go-ahead once he has actually cleared the matter with himself and the people who advise on the issue. But we will be expected to give a detailed presentation on how this is going to be undertaken. We have done it before, and it was quite successful. It was a multidisciplinary approach that includes other agencies of the state, SARS and all of that. So that is what we're looking forward to. But this time around, to bring not only stability, to clamp down on violent gangs in areas that will have been identified with crime intelligence and all other multidisciplinary approach within the South African Police Service. Partnerships, we agree. We have not exhausted this part. I'm not happy myself with regard to partnerships with God. They are not sustainable. Community policing forums have tended to become reservists. They no longer do what is expected of their mandate. They need a refresher course to understand their mandate. What I need, it is those patrollers in the different areas. And some of them get stipend and all of that, but they're doing a wonderful job. If you look at the Western Cape, in the Cape Flats, and you look at the township where we've got community patrollers, wonderful job with the police and so on, and all other areas, including where I come from yesterday, in the Val. We've got community patrollers there. They are doing a wonderful job with the police on the ground. So these partnerships are important. They must be reduced to at the level of the street committee, where in which communities can work together to basically, those who don't want crime, to report criminals and liars with the police in relation to the fight against crime. Kidnapping is a new phenomenon, all right? I cannot stand here and tell you that we are totally clued up, but it is worrisome. There are a few people in and around South Africa that have been kidnapped and who are very wealthy, who come from a Muslim background and so on. And whether or not that is getting out of control, I can't give that. But I'm aware of high-profile cases in that regard of people that the police are dealing with that matter, and not in a specialized form, but it has been handled and attended to. Because the question of ransom and so on cannot actually be acceptable. The role of crime register, I will leave that to the generals to respond to that. Did the current stats comply? I'll also leave that to them. Police are not. Police need to be led properly. They need leadership. Now, we've had General Slevi, we had Becky Kele. He brought some progress in the police, and then he could not finish his term. And then we had Ria Piacha, she could not finish her term, and so on. And then from there we had acting police commissioners, Pahlani up to General Mutiba. Now, I want us to bring stability at that level of leadership. The only time SAPS had stable leadership was during the days of Fivers, General Fivers. That is now not in apartheid, I'm talking post-apartheid, in our democracy.
You also before as well.
Okay, but I'm explaining that. So we have not had that stability. So we need that stability going forward. in terms of the leadership of the police at all levels. That is important. So if the center does not hold, and then people are acting, some of the acting did not happen because of our liking. We did not have a choice because we were faced with litigation, and that was it. And so now we have an opportunity to employ a permanent commissioner of police, and which is what the president has been considering carefully going forward. So that is why we're looking at before end of the year in terms of that particular point. We're looking at also all other levels that you have mentioned in the police to ensure that there is stability. Where we are affected, obviously, you will see that even the results in terms of the statistics are basically communicating a different message. MP Kola Barnett, it is not correct that we went, the general of the police in the Western Cape is here with me. Some of those people were arrested as suspects when police were undertaking operations after the Marikana event, after the Marikana happenings. Some of them have found themselves back into the cell as we speak. Those who are lying on the ground there, arrested by the police, because police arrested them and then they did not have sufficient evidence to arrest them any further. Within 48 hours, they released them. But as they conducted their investigation, they actually found their way back to the cells because they had dangerous guns. The very same people you say they were humiliated by the police, they were never humiliated. And many allegations were made that the police were even checking the corpse of a dead.
That's the police minister releasing the crime stats 2016 and 17. Meanwhile, we go back now to the North Gauteng High Court, where the High Court is hearing President Jacob Zuma's review application on the State of Capture report. It's from today until Thursday. Let's go live.
Remedial action being implemented. Am I correct?
That is the submission we're making, my lady, and it would be a remedial action to cure
that which was found from the investigation, and she's reported on that specific conduct.
Indeed, that is the submission we make. But in the SARFU judgment, might I invite your lordships and the ladyship to page 414, paginated, and in particular go to paragraph 220 of that judgment.
414. What paragraph?
Paragraph 220 at the foot of the page. There the judgment describes what a commission of inquiry is. And we make in the submission, it is very important that we examine what animal this is. At 220 says the judgment, the power to appoint a commission of inquiry is a tool to assist the executive in the task of government. That's what it is. The executive is not obliged to accept either the factual findings or recommendations of a commission. The commission's report may be acted upon or not, as the president and his executive considers fit. Now, what becomes of a complaint which has been laid with the public protector? If what must happen to that complaint is this, that it is there for the advice of the president in the task of government, and the executive is not even obliged to accept the factual findings for that matter, and it is not obliged to accept the recommendations of a commission. This, we say, demonstrates amply why this remedial action is invalid. Those who are affected or prejudiced by the conduct complained about deserve better than this, deserve more than this. They deserve to have a remedial action taken which is binding and which is intended to cure or correct the misconduct. Now, may we address the question of why it is irrational to have taken the remedial action that she has taken. The first point we made is that inadequate resources are not sufficient to abdicate the responsibility that vests on the public protector in terms of the constitutional statute. And there is no debate that what informed her conduct about the appointment of a commission as a remedial action is squarely or also based on the inadequate funding she complains about. But when we look at the record, we also see that that decision was also informed by the fact that she held a particular view about her successor coming. And she says, she found that the successor only operated as a senior investigator in the public protector's office, and then says about her was at a level junior to her current position, so she herself will still have to acclimatize to his new position where she's not at their level. She has to re-supervise and quality assure everything that they have to say. And this, she says, is the reason why, in part, she thought that a commission of inquiry would be better suited to do the investigation. Well, it is a tried proposition of law to say if you take into account considerations irrelevant to the decision, that decision will be tainted and can stand to be set aside. Now, if these were ever impediments, it is difficult to see why the Commission of Inquiry was not going to have to reassess the process afresh. And could it ever be valid that an incumbent who has been appointed procedurally correctly, went through the parliamentary process of appointment, was found to be okay, her position as a public protector has not been challenged, that the outgoing public protector says this is another reason why it shouldn't be handled by her. Apart from it being a slight at her, it is just irrational to do it for that basis. And she also does it on the basis that her term of office is about to come to an end. That cannot be a basis rational why the investigation which is lodged with the Office of the Public Protector must now be done by a Commission of Inquiry. And she uses in the record the word she has to do it in a rush. Now, the court would have seen the heads of argument of the various respondents. They go at length to point out to a commission of inquiry being a suitable vehicle to investigate matters of this nature, because they say it is a matter of wide national interest. Yes, it has various other embedded tools to get to the truth. Yes, but that's not the inquiry. That is not the issue. Whether or not a commission of inquiry is better suited to investigate state capture is an interesting one. But in this matter, it is whether or not that conduct or that action can be actuated by a remedial action by the public protector. That is where the contestation is. It would be a different matter if we make the submission. If anybody had said to the president, there is a matter of state capture, is of wide, serious public interest, it is striking at the heart of good governance of the country, and it has all the permutations of difficulties associated with the economy. Please appoint a commission of inquiry. And the president then, in the face of objective factors necessitating the appointment of a commission of inquiry, the president says no. Then one can conceivably see an application being brought to impugn the decision of the president from refusing to take a decision to appoint a commission of inquiry. That is a completely different scenario than one that is appointed on the dictate of another.
Could I request you to move to the preemption issue?
Yes.
Because I think you've covered these other issues, unless there's one that you need to deal with. But I think preemption is important.
And perhaps the better place to start in addressing the question of preemption is to go to the judgment of Justice Seriti in the SCA, in the Samanco judgment, that we find, and we wish to refer to the paragraph 25 and 26, where the concept of preemption is described. That would be paginated 441. Against paragraph 25 and under the heading Doctrine of Preemption, the judgment reads, in Genteruco AG versus Firestone SAPTY Ltd, Trolip JA said, quote, the right of an unsuccessful litigant to appeal against an adverse judgment or order is said to be preempted if he, by unequivocal conduct inconsistent with an intention to appeal, shows that he acquiesces in the judgment or order. And there is reference by Ines CJ in that regard, which says, if a man has clearly and unconditionally acquiesced in and decided to abide by the judgment, he cannot thereafter challenge it. That is the concept of a preemption. Now, how does that square with the facts in this case? The respondents are arguing that in a Hansard document in Parliament to a question, the President has said we have decided to appoint a commission of inquiry. And then they say that very conduct preempted the President's right to have this review. But surely that can be correct. It is obvious that the commission of inquiry the President wants to appoint or have decided to appoint is not one dictated by the public protector. It is not the one where the remedial action says must be presided by a judge solely selected by the Chief Justice. And he also even says in the Hansard document, I am not even excluding the emails, which are not part of the remedial action of the public protector. So it is a commission of inquiry with much wider ambit than that which is in the remedial action. Now, why would a president not be entitled to have, as she has done in other instances, the Marikana, for instance, say, I want this one presided by 3 people? What fetters his discretion is because the remedial action says you are just going to be presided by 1 judge and you must be given 1 minute.
The question, however, is has he, by his conduct, acquiesced in the remedial action?
No. The question is he hasn't. This very application, my lord, is a demonstration of her non-acquiescence. It says, I'm not taking this remedial action to be good. I am going to contest it. and brings this application right down the line on the 2nd of December.
Is what he stated in the Hansard, did this occur after the remedial act?
It happened after. It happened after. And that's why the preemption point is a bad one.
So how should an ordinary member of society view his statement of establishing a commission? That he says he will do it, but no one will tell him to do it. He'll do it when he thinks it's necessary to do it. Because I think that's the ambit of how he can exercise that decision, isn't it?
Yes. 2 points to be made on that, my Lord. The first is, we all must accept that if he is doing it as a consequence of dictation of the public protector, then it's unlawful.
But if he acquiesces in it,
does not give it legality. A preemption is a shield. It's not anything else.
In other words, you say it must be lawful.
It must still be.
It must be a judgment properly handed down in which you acquiesce.
Well, the point they're making, and perhaps not mistakenly so, is to say a remedial action that has a binding effect is equivalent to a civil judgment.
Well, that seems to be established. It has binding effect.
Yes.
And is equivalent in its own right to a judgment. One can acquiesce in it.
That's not a debate with respect, and we make no contestation about that. The question is whether, on the facts, there has been any preemption.
Yes, it's a factual.
It's a factual inquiry. Now, the law tells us that a preemption, if properly construed, must mean that you are acquiescing unequivocally with that decision. And we're making the point that this very application is just a contradiction of that acquiescence. There was an earlier application which was brought, the one that served before.
In terms of the timeline, did the statement in Parliament precede the launch of this application?
I beg your...
Did the statement made in Parliament precede the launch of this application?
No, it is subsequent.
Subsequent to this?
Subsequent.
So just let me put myself in the picture, Mr. Semenya. Your argument is that the acquiesced is not in relation to the type of commission that has been, inverted commas, on your version, dictated to the president in the circumstances here.
And she's making it plain.
Can I just finish this? Your acquiesce is towards the fact that he says, I am going to have a commission, and this commission will entail even as far as the letters or the emails of the Gupta. And that commission is not the one that was proposing the remedial action in this instance. Do I have you correct?
That is a
All right, live there from the North Gauteng High Court, which is hearing President Jacob Zuma's application to review the remedial action contained in former Public Protector Thuli Madonsela's State of Capture report. President Zuma filed that application with the High Court to have Madonsela's report reviewed and set aside, saying that the former Public Protector had encroached on the role of the executive in her recommendations. Madonsela was, of course, looking into those allegations of an improper relationship between the president and the influential Gupta family in relation to key appointments in the president's cabinet and the awarding of contracts at state-owned enterprises. Listening there to Advocate Semenya, he's been arguing for the president, saying that the Public Protector's inquiry recommendations is not a remedy. And we will take you back there in a short while. Let's first take a break and then a look at your day's top stories when we come back.
we are witnessing the beginning of the end of the apartheid system.
If you did a paternity test on our constitution, whose DNA would come up? Not Nelson Mandela, not F.W. de Klerk, Oliver Tambo.
You're with the Midday Report. Good afternoon. Let's get straight into your headlines. The overall crime rate has fallen, but the murder rate rises. Those are the latest crime stats coming out from the police ministry this morning. And the North Gauteng High Court is hearing President Zuma's application to review the remedial action contained in former Public Protector Thuli Madonsela's State of Capture report. And the former Gauteng Health MEC, Kwedani Magla